probably... Thank you. Thank you, Zoom, for your recording in progress announcement. So welcome to our guest lectures, the last one. I think we're going to call it the last one of this year. I'm not sure we'll be able to sneak any more in, although we might have a bit of a get together at some point during the summer. I hope everybody's well. We're pretty much coming up to the exam board, so everything should be done and dusted at your end. You can let those shoulders go, stream out with the school bell and party for the summer to your heart's content. You've worked really hard and it is all done. So yeah, enjoy all of that, whatever it is you decide to do for your own relaxation and benefit. So let me welcome Hannelie. Hannelie is coming from South Africa, I believe. Is that correct? You're still in South Africa? I have to ask that because she often is zipping around the world to different places, Switzerland and all sorts of different things on her adventures. And my goodness, I've known Hannelie for a while and she's had some adventures. Hannelie comes from a corporate background, of which I'm sure she'll say more about. And in this talk tonight, she's looking at business in terms of how business can support or work with spirituality, ecology, and mental health. And I'm really looking forward to what Hannelie's got to say in this space. And I know she's been doing some interesting collaborations with various different organizations and institutions and universities around the world. So it's always a pleasure to see you, Hannelie. You're looking lovely, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what you've got to say. So I'm going to shut up now and hand the floor over to you.
Thank you so much, Lee, for that kind introduction. You know Lee by this time, so I don't have to say that. You always have to take everything with a bit of salt because he can over-exaggerate. Yes, and I think I know Lee now for 4.5 years. We met in 2020 online during a virtual session that a friend of him hosted. And since then, and we co-created together after that as well. And he contributed to one of my journals. And yes, it's been quite an interesting journey together, and to also on that level be part of your world on that side of the world. Thank you, Lee, for that insight into what's happening in the Northern Hemisphere, especially in higher education and in terms of positive psychology and the likes. So thank you for that. So before we really dive into the subject of business as a vehicle for spiritual well-being, ecological awareness, and mental health, I would like us just to listen up a little bit. I'd like to invite you just to choose a number between 1 and 5. So both included, you can choose one number and then just put it for us in the chat. We're going to use it later. So 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Whatever comes up. So we've got a 3, we've got a 1.
4.
4. Just Romy.
Right. Oops, that's it. Sorry, it was very, very slow.
No problem.
4. Okay.
4. Great. Great. So I can't help but when I look at your tree behind you, Romy, a story just comes to mind immediately. And it is somehow connected to this topic. And it's a story of the man, he needed help at his house. So a person who can do all these general things around the house came to help him. But when he wanted to leave for home that night, his truck broke down. And this man that hired him said he will take him home. It was quite a distance. And they were talking, and obviously the man was frustrated because it's going to cost him a lot of money to fix the truck, which he didn't have. So he was a bit disturbed. But then the man that hired him, let's name Tom. Tom sees something interesting happening when they get to his house. In front of the house is a tree. And this gentleman, he opened the door for Tom, and Tom's wife greeted them. But the man stayed behind the tree, and he saw him doing some kind of ritual. And Tom went in, he just noticed this in the background. And then he suddenly saw that this man's whole behavior changed. He lit up like like a literal living tree. He was alive. All the worries was forgotten. And he played with his children and they had dinner together. And they had a lovely dinner. And after the dinner, Tom asked him, before he returned home, asked him, what happened there at the tree? And this man said, that's my trouble tree. It's no use I bring my troubles home every night. My life is at home is with my family and my kids and my wife. And I want to enjoy dinner with them and the rest of the evening because tomorrow morning I can come back to my troubles if I want to. But usually in the morning they are less worrying. They are lighter. And I don't have to worry about the tree because the tree can transmute that energy. So this is my trouble tree. So what we've been doing as well is when we were visiting clients, especially in boardrooms, we would take them a trouble plant that can live obviously in the office and teaching them to leave their troubles outside of the boardroom so that when they go into the boardroom, all those worries and anxiety and stuff is outside of the room, but they can really attend to what's happening in that boardroom, for example. You can put it in front of the office or the class or, lecture room or wherever you want to. But for me, it's always a beautiful story because in the world that we're currently living in this hybrid world of the workplace and the environment, it's very difficult then to separate these parts of ourselves. But we're all human beings. So that's why I love the story as well, that even if we do work at home, we can have a trouble in front of our bedroom door, for example, or the study or wherever we do most of our work when we work online at home. So just this little bit of an intro. So I just want us to loosen up a little bit as well before we dive into some of the insights that I've got to share with you from all our experiences in this kind of domain, is to share with us one thing, maybe two, that make you peculiar. What's peculiar about you? Now, if you look at Lee, you know Lee is peculiar all over. Sorry, Lee, I had to do that. But for me, I'll start. And then I will just pass on to one of you, and then you can pass on to the next person. So one of my peculiarities is I've been doing things totally against the grain. For example, I've been invited to be a CEO of a big institution in the Nordics, which I declined. And I also denied a board member appointment as well, which is just not me. It's not my role to play. I don't want to sit in a corner office or having those type of responsibilities. I rather play with the people who's doing those things, for example. So this is one of my peculiarities. So I'll pass to you, Romy. Hello, Hailey.
Sorry, I forgot I was muted. So sorry, I didn't quite catch it. So am I meant to say something that I have
Something that's
denied?
peculiar, that's peculiar about you, that's weird or different,
Okay.
funny or
Something that's peculiar and different about me was that when I was 10 years old, my house was raided by the police, and they were looking for the crown jewels of one of the princes of Saudi Arabia, and they pulled up all the floorboards of our house because he had wrongly accused my mum of theft because she had the audacity of asking for her wages when he fired her. And then he sent ninjas to try and assassinate us, and we had to have a police guard outside our home, and our phone was tapped to help us. So that was a very wild and peculiar fact when I was 10 years old. Very exciting.
Okay, I'll pass on your behalf. Sinisha.
Oh, so I'm not sure actually. I think it's a really difficult question because and now I'm going to get very philosophical because I feel like what is peculiar? You know what I mean? Like I feel like I have normalized my insanity. So everything that I do now makes lots of sense to me. But I suppose I really like to look for signs. Like this morning, after I kind of had my coffee from Pret because our coffee machine has broken, I noticed at the end of on the bottom of my cup there was like a little island. So I kind of developed the whole story behind the island. Like, what could this image potentially mean to me? So I think maybe that's a peculiar thing, although I don't see it like that.
We will get on along famously. And who do you pass to?
Sorry, so I would say Ian, please go next, if that's okay.
There we are. Hello. So I'm actually enrolled on 2 university courses currently, and one of them is really mad, and I did it because I didn't understand what the title meant. It was Spirituality, Ecology and Mental Health, which is such a bizarre name. I thought I'll do that and find out what it's about.
That's awesome. Prem, let's go to you.
Well, as Ian typed in the chat box, where to start? Why am I peculiar? I suppose because I refuse to fit into any molds. Having lived a very rigid and structured life up until 2008, when I worked in the prosecution world, working with police, working in the criminal justice system. And ever since, I think it's just foot off the brake and foot on the accelerator. I have this very, I don't know, I mean, it is peculiar because I challenge and I do things. I don't just talk about them, I do them. Yeah, I think that's my peculiarity. I don't know if it's good. People say, oh, you're brave. Oh my God, what you're doing is so brave. And I'm going, but I'm doing it. And it doesn't matter whether it fails. It doesn't matter whether it works. I'm just not prepared to sit back. I don't want to be on my deathbed and go, oh gosh, I wish I'd tried that. You know, so I do try to live by the seat of my pants a lot of the time. I'm still struggling getting into the cold water every morning at the moment. It's like, it's only 21 degrees, do I have to climb in? But I'm getting there. It doesn't help when you've got the spa next to it, which is really hot. So I've let that go cold in the hope that tomorrow morning I might actually get in the cold water. So yes, I'm peculiar in that I do things. I don't just talk about them. I do actually normally end up doing them and saying yes. Actually, my going forward into my next year, I've decided that I'm going to be a bit like that film, and I'm going to say yes to everything.
The secret, I call it the sacred flow of yes.
Yes, the state of flow.
The sacred flow of yes.
Yeah, the sacred flow of yes. So yeah, that's me. I just say yeah. I do say yes, and I'm going to say yes more often.
Great. And Hannelie, we're just sharing something that's peculiar about ourselves. Thank you, Prem.
I find this really hard. The only thing I can think of is that I sometimes, when I attempt to be funny or sarcastic, people take me seriously and think I mean what I'm saying. And I've been in so many situations where I genuinely think I'm being funny and it's just dead. And sometimes people have even walked away. I'm like, I'm joking, I didn't mean it. So I find that quite peculiar when that happens. But
that's
probably
awesome.
think I'm peculiar.
Thank you. And Lee, you last of all.
Oh, bless you. There's some beautiful peculiarities. I don't know, perhaps my beard's peculiar, perhaps just I'm peculiar, or perhaps I just have a peculiar / original way of seeing things at times. Perhaps we all do, but I think somewhere in there it's been noted that I seem to see things in a different way, or that other people don't quite see in the same way. I'd like to call it creativity, but I think most people would call it peculiarity.
Awesome. Everything you shared is actually weirdly connected to what we're going to explore together. So thank you for that and for playing with. Hannelie, I just want to invite you to also share with us a number between 1 and 5 in the chat. 1, 2, 3, or 5. Now, just in the chat, we're going to use it a little bit later. And if I speak too fast, I'm South African, I get excited. Just do that, and then I know I have to slow down with the speaking, because I know my accent is different on your ears as well. I'm aware of that. So thank you for that. So we're going to go on a little journey in this process. And the invitation is to invite yourself to be an alien. It's like you're an alien zooming out from outer space, and you're looking at Earth and what's happening here as we go on that little journey. So we're going to, it's as if it's for the first time, invite ourselves. So just to stay curious, and maybe a lot of the things I'll be sharing you know about already. It's just how we're going to put it together that might be perhaps of assistance for you, especially in your course. So yeah, to look with fresh eyes to what's possible. Because sometimes a lot of what you all shared is completely natural to you, and most probably to other people too. But we think that it's not natural to them. And that was my experience, because my history is in consulting and in business, and my own spiritual path went concurrent to that. And it was always a desire to be a bridge between spirituality and business. So, and I'm a nature, I love nature. So I'm a nature babe. So there was how we think, so our mindsets. So playing with people to expand their perception, and to challenge their own mindsets, and to explore in an embodied way what else is possible. It's some of the stuff that I'm getting excited about, and that I've been using a lot in my professional career as well, even in formal consulting, which I'm very grateful for. So I'm going to share my screen with you quickly. Me and Lee tried it earlier, and we decided it's best. I'm not going to bore you too much with my background. You can look at it later. What's more important is I see myself as a business philosopher, in the sense that we're exploring today. There's some of my background, all business related, not really important. And just a little bit about the possibility gap is we're playing at that intersection of leadership, strategy, business practices, and process innovation, change, people, technology, and well-being, which really impacts the future of work, and the future of humanity, and the future of leadership and education. Now I would like to invite you just to take a moment to look at this video. Can you hear it? I just want to know, could you hear it? Perfect. I just wanted to make sure, because earlier we tried it and then we had some challenges. I just want to say that while we're watching the video, just sit back and relax and look at what this video is telling us about, especially you as an alien, about this topic. What can it possibly tell you? I'll start my laptop is today a little bit. There we go. That was a lot. Now, don't worry about what you've just noticed, what you've just seen. You will see how it comes together a little bit later. Now, for me, when I watched that the first time, I saw that everything was alive. Lots of movement, flow. I didn't experience a differentiation between the lady who was lying on the grass, between the wildflowers and the rest of nature. She was part of it. It was the beauty of a coherent ecosystem. And if we look at what's happening in the world right now, there's a movement towards that we are no longer seeing things in silos. Like imagine at work, no matter your occupation, that you have half a brain or one arm, you're coming in as a whole human being. But we've compartmentalized ourselves and our lives in so many different ways in the way we looked at life. But there's a shift in that happening, and it will become clear of what I'm about to share with you as well. So once again, I just want to share my screen with you. So the invitation here is just to unwind our minds. Oops, I'm still at my video. This video doesn't want to go away. Let me just see why that's happening. 1 second. So the invitation now is just to unwind our minds a bit. Oh, I don't know why that's happening. Let me just continue to the end. Stop. Apologize for that. Not sure why this is happening with us. Some gremlin. I just want to make sure that's going away. Zoom. There we go. Let's try again. Can you see this? Lee, can you see this? I just want to see why you
Not
can't
yet,
see.
Hannelie.
Not yet. It's interesting. There we go.
Okay, you're back up now.
I'm back up. There we go at last. Thank you for the patience. So just to unwind our minds a bit, what I've discovered is through working with different types of people from different cultures in the world, especially in the business world, is that when we use sacred geometry, we bring these worlds together: nature, our minds, our bodies, and our spirituality. So I just want to invite you just for a few moments, see if you can, this labyrinth, the beauty of it is that when we follow the flow of the labyrinth, we're not only unwinding our minds, but we also stimulate our visual and kinesthetic awareness simultaneously. And that's very important for us to see life as a whole, as one big ecosystem. So whether it's a business, whether it's us walking in the world, or seeing ourselves as part of it and being it rather than seeing ourselves as separate from it, sacred geometry is one of the things that helps us, because these patterns happen in nature and it also happens in our bodies, but also in our minds, in our brains, everywhere. It's everywhere visible and duplicated as patterns. So I'd like to invite you just to take a moment to see if you can get to the middle of that labyrinth. So just follow with your eyes. It's very helpful also then to unwind the mind a bit as well. If you get stuck, don't worry about it. Because the coloring might be confusing your mind, which is something to also note. Now, you'll have the recording of this, so I'm going to invite you to do that perhaps later when you watch the recording again, to stop the video here and just to follow with your eyes and just notice then how you feel more rather than what you think. what I've discovered while working with people, trying to bring these parts together in us, spirituality, our minds, our mental health, and ecology, is it's a feeling experience that rather brings them together than a thinking experience. But we always start with the mind first. And we use a very simple process. I'll share it quickly with you. You start with the mind, you allow it to empty itself. So for example, if we had time, I would have asked you now to write down what you think about all these concepts: business, spirituality, ecology, and mental health. Because then you give the mind the opportunity to allow it to empty itself, because it wants to be heard. It wants to be used. That's why it's there. It wants to be used. And once you've done that, you don't look at it again, what you've written down. You don't think about it. It's like free writing. And then you put it away. Then you do something that nourishes the body, because you want to support the body as well. Because it's the body that we use to walk in the world out there. It's through the body that we experience spirituality. It's through the body that we experience nature and ecology. It's not some mental concept. It's real. It's there. It's reality. But it's our bodies that allows us to do that. Now, when we do that it gives us a feeling sensation when they come together. And it's that sensation that's the doorway through our senses to spirituality. Because spirituality, if we have a spiritual experience, for example, or a mystical experience, it's not something that we can really describe to others, can't we? It's something we're aware of it. It's an awareness thing. It's a sensory experience. We have feeling. It's a feeling. It's not just a concept. And when we see ourselves in the world, we've been conditioned to see ourselves as separate. We see business as separate. But let's look at that, because when we look at it and we've taken time to relax the body and look after the body, so the second step then is to let the body relax. So listen to beautiful music. You can do a meditation if you wish. Just lying in the grass outside in the sun, resting the body. The body doesn't have to do anything. It doesn't have to stress. It doesn't have to go into flight, freeze mode. That's also good for the mind as well, the mental health. Then after that, we can now start to challenge the mind, to reframe things, to expand the mind, to look at things from different perspectives and in different ways. And once we've played around with the mind in a very creative way with creative thinking, we can now go into a process where we actually try to embody that. What we've discovered there, what does that feel like? We show up as that. So we need to presence it, role play it. And when we role play it, we are not allowed to use words, because then the thinking mind will get very busy as well. We don't want that. We want the body to show up as it. Because if the body resisted that mental concept that we had created, the body will resist it if the body is not comfortable with what it feels like. So for example, if I told you, you have to skydive tomorrow, and you're terrified of it, the idea already might be very scary for you. But it's only once you're in the plane and you're going to jump out of it that you'll notice what it feels like. But the mind will continue stopping you to say, hey, this is dangerous. So we must get the body to be comfortable with what it's going to do, because the body will then take the step. It will just do it. And the more comfortable we get in the body, we can start changing patterns, especially be seeing things as separate, like we've experienced, because we see business as a separate thing from spirituality, from ecology, and from our mental health, because that's why we have so many, in my view, we have so many dilemmas in the world out there. But let's go on a little bit. I just want to share my screen with you again, and hopefully this time around, that song won't want to repeat itself. It still had something to tell us. Now, Vincent was a very wise man, a very tragic man, but very wise. And he said, it's when we look at things for a long, long time that it ripens within us, that gives us understanding. So as an alien now, the invitation is to explore these concepts and look at them. We're just going to look at them. And then a little bit later, So I'm going to go through these rather quickly, just give you a little bit of the insight on them. And then the story will come together at the end. And then you are welcome to ask questions. Now, unfortunately, because we see things in isolation and not as a whole ecosystem, it's something like this. It's all disconnected, reductionist thinking, linear mindset, and it's separate things. So in our topic today, we've got business, then we've got the mind, then the spirit. I was struggling to find the appropriate image for that, so I took that nose represents our breath, our spirit, our life force, and then nature, of course, ecology, and then a vehicle, because business as a vehicle for these to happen. And it actually, if we really look at it, it's really possible for that to happen. But we might still see them as very separate things, and that will create barriers. So what we've discovered is, and here's your numbers. So whatever number you chose, that will be the number that we're going to use at the end. So if you chose number 1, you'll be spirit. You'll represent spirit. Number 2 is ecology. Number 3 is the mind, mental health. Number 4 is business. And number 5 is the vehicle. Now, a vehicle is a very interesting thing. It takes us somewhere, correct? So business is taking us somewhere. It's not just there to share our talents and gifts with the world and to work together with other people and to fulfill objectives and the likes. It's taking us somewhere. And it's taking us somewhere outside of ourselves that we can enrich our experiences. But when we do that, there's something missing, the heart. In that previous picture, where's the human being in that? Because in there's no human being. It's concepts. Because even if we look at spirituality, it can be a concept to people who don't really understand or have had an experience in it. So they can have a mental construct of it, but it's not really meaningful because it's still something far outside of ourselves. So what is it that makes it human for us, that we can have that experience? I took a heart to represent that. Because business, like our hearts, is a living, breathing system. Our minds is a living organism. It's not a concept as many think. It's alive. We can expand it, we can shrink it to our desire. I don't have to speak about ecology. It's alive. It's an ecosystem. It's a living, breathing ecosystem. And this all is one thing, but we've been conditioned to see it as separate. And we use it as separate. Now, what we do in the business world to use that as a vehicle for spirituality, the mental health, as well as ecology, is we begin to weave into the current processes what is driving us. So when we look at strategy in a business sense, it's a conceptual. It's not about anything experiential. It's a concept. It's usually tactical. It's transactional. We think about it in a linear way. We have to achieve this from this point to that point, but in a linear way. And life doesn't happen in a linear way either. So what drives us is very important. But there's still something wrong in this picture, because who's driving this? Who's at this? On the left, you see this from a car. Who's driving this? It's the human being who's driving all of this. Their perception of it, at least, but still seeing it as separate. So we have to use our mental capacities, our mental dexterity to look at this in a different way. So zooming out from it, that we can see more. Because when we look at something very close, we see a lot of detail, but we need to remove ourselves from it that we can see the bigger picture. So I just want to quickly take you through a little journey of, as an alien for you now, through the history of humanity, the footsteps of humanity. And as we look at business, why did it impact us that we saw ourselves as separate from nature? Why did we see ourselves as separate from spirituality? That our spiritual life is not something that's part of our business. I've had many leaders many, many years ago would say to me, but my people's personal development and their spiritual development has nothing to do with me. They are here to fulfill a role and a function. But that's not true. Like I said earlier, we show up as a full human being, body, mind, heart, and spirit, and soul, when we show up in the business world. So the business world is an amazing vehicle for us to develop everything about us, whoever we are. Now we look at what happened in the past. In the agricultural era, in the 18th century, the world was very small. It was all about us and our family, and we were close to nature. Yes, we were closely together with the land and with the elements. We had an incredible relationship with them. And the purpose of our job, so to speak, was to work the land. Then in the industrial era, something began to happen very interesting. Because we were producing lots of stuff, we're making products. They had to be made with precision. Our world expanded from here to near. So we had to go out of the home towards the factory. Now you can just imagine how terrifying it was for those people alive at that time to make the shift, to suddenly go away from their land that they so cherished, and that relationship, because suddenly they were sitting in a building and there was mass production. Then in the 20th century, especially with the information era and the technology era and the latter part of the 20th century, which was also, funny enough, the knowledge era, as people speak about, suddenly because of technology, our worlds became bigger, further away. So suddenly we were branching out. We became aware of much more. Before, information and knowledge was kept by only a few, and others had to go to schools and universities and colleges to learn, and libraries and the likes. But suddenly with the internet coming, we had easy access to information. But even in the way we looked at knowledge, we were working the mind. So it was called the age of reason as well by some people, the 20th century. Then the jump to the 21st century is quite interesting because of what happened with social media, now even with artificial intelligence and robotics and the likes, which was also started being developed already in the previous era. Suddenly we became aware of our impact on each other and the globe, onto Earth, onto everything. That we are not separate from it, we are impacted with everything we do, especially in terms of business. And with social media, the view is brought back to the human being, because it suddenly became all about creating experiences rather than anything else. And when we look at the reasons why we work, the driving force, even from a generational point of view, the boomers, after the wars, that made complete sense at that time. It was all about rebuilding the world. So it was about owning and gathering. And it was all about things, stuff. I need to own a home to get that security. But we know pretty well that that's not really the security, that's not really security. But regardless, then the next generation, well, they mostly work to build a career. That's the Generation X's. And to learn, to accumulate knowledge. And it was more about their positions in the world than anything else. In the jump to the next generation, Generation Y, or millenniums as they're called, they worked for a very different purpose. They wanted to maintain a specific lifestyle, and they wanted to create a livelihood for themselves. And for them already, it started to become more about the experience itself than anything else, not so much about the position. But that brought us back to the human in the previous one, where we lost that connection, especially during the industrial era, with the human part. And now with the younger generations, for them, it's all about making a difference, having meaning and purpose, really caring how we impact each other and the world and our beautiful planet. So it's I don't know if you can see the pattern, but we're coming back to soul, to life force energy, that we can see ourselves as this bigger ecosystem and not separate. Now we continue that in the business world. Now, if you look at this image here, I don't know if you noticed, but I noticed immediately when I chose it. I didn't choose it for that purpose, but I saw it afterwards. There are dollar signs in the middle there, $52 something. All about money, how much we can accumulate. So where we come from terms of business, which impact how we then see business as a vehicle for spirituality, ecology, and mental health, is the focus was very differently focused. It was focused internally at the organization, self-serving. It was reactive living because we didn't really care what we impacted. It was very strategic, tactical, reductionist, calculated thinking. I've sat through many of those strategic sessions where it's really calculating thinking. It's not from the heart. And if you really look at business, it's a structure. It's a conceptual structure. It's not something we can touch, really. We look at it in graphs and the likes to see how well we do, but that's still not something we can touch. And it's a numbers game. That's where we came from. And now there's a shift to something very different, especially with the younger generations and these eras of awareness where we find ourselves in. Where suddenly we begin to see the bigger picture, and technology helped us to do that in the internet, the social media. Where now the younger generations, it's for the greater good of all. It's about conscious living. So my impact on everyone around me and myself as well, my own body, my own mind, my own mental health. 20, 30 years ago in the business world, nobody cared about mental health. It was not an issue. It wasn't mentioned, but now it's a big thing. It's fluid, it's more inclusive, but it's a generative ecosystem. What I mean by that, it is something that can grow. It's like a garden, so to speak. We're growing minds, we're growing hearts, we're growing our consciousness, we're growing and developing our talents. It's like a flower blossoming. That's what I saw in that video. It's that blossoms in spring. It's the ability for us to become who we truly are from a spiritual level. And what drives us, what gives us meaning and purpose. And it's really very symbiotic, so it's not draining, but it becomes a way of life rather than a numbers game. So we are shifting from being despirited, so to speak, soulless, to more soul in business. Hence, it's been such an amazing space for us to be able to explore these parts of ourselves and our relation to everything around us. If we didn't have a relationship with nature, it didn't mean something to us. But when we grew up, especially me in my time, so I'll give my age away, we were taught about the world by the ABCs, by concepts, not by eating an apple. We were learning about an apple as APPLE, not as this incredible fruit that I can taste and feel how it nourishes my whole body and gives me energy, that I can look at the orchids that's living in that apple, that can come from that apple seeds, that all the potential that it holds, there's already there. But that's a relationship. So that's what we're heading towards. That's why business then is an amazing vehicle for that to happen. Because that's where we come together. That's where we like to build relationships with our colleagues, with our co-workers, they become our friends. We really get to know each other at a very deep level, especially in times of trauma. But now we look at sustainability, for example. Now, unfortunately, you might not see the top line, but it says the dilemma we have with the SDGs, the UN Social Development Goals, as well as ESG, ecology, sustainability, and CSI, corporate social investment, is that it is mostly perception without awareness. We're greenwashing things. Companies do things just because they have to be seen that they're doing something. It's not from the heart. It's not with awareness. It doesn't come from the inside out. Now, why is that such a dilemma? Now, first of all, if you look at the previous one, if everything is internally focused, then number one, and maybe number two, and maybe number three is relevant. So I'm self-focused on myself only. I want to build a career. We need to make profit and more money, for example. And sometimes it can be outside focused as well, but it's still not, we're not in it. We're talking about something that's outside of the room. It's not here. So we're talking about he, she, they, or it. And that is not perception with awareness. Now, when we move over to the other side, when it becomes group focused, we say we are, but it can still be a very inclusive exclusive we. It doesn't necessarily include everyone. And for that, we are focused on we and our connections. That's important. Then if we look at globally focused awareness, because it comes back to our spirituality as well, and ecology for that matter, and our mental health, and how we see the world, and how we choose to make decisions every day, it's focused on the collective and offer practical solutions, but it's still outside of us. We're looking outwards. It doesn't necessarily impact us ourselves, although the purpose of it might be very well-meaning and very honorable. And for some it is also internal, but the focus is on the collective, so the bigger picture. Then cosmic focus is we're taking even a step out further. Now the transpersonal becomes important for us. And we have this bird's eye view, this bigger picture view where we can see all these connections between things. And AI is now helping us in some way to begin to see some of these connections. And then we can offer our wisdom to the world. But there our view is all are. We are one with all that is. And we don't feel separate. Now you can see that if a business is operating with self-focus, and even in some cases other focus, because we have to, because it's to be compliant for whatever reason, and we greenwash ourselves, that the world must think we are doing such great things, it still doesn't solve our dilemmas in the world. Hence, spirituality being so important. Our awareness, it starts with our awareness. But because we've seen these things as separate things in silos, business, my spiritual life, my mental health, was my stuff, my business, it's only recently that started becoming a big thing since the pandemic. And ecology, it was not like a drop of water that comes from the sky and it provides for all of us in that area. That can ripple out. So we moved from that linear type thinking to this holographic thinking that it impacts everything around us. And it's this number 6 and 5 and number 4 in a way that helps us to get to that space. But now you might ask me, but how do we get there? Now for us in experience, it's coming back to basics. We want to make that body, mind, heart, soul connection and give people the opportunity to have that by making the invisible visible, but through a personal experience, not just telling them about it, but they can experience it themselves. Then that structure that we have as a business become a perfect vehicle for this to happen. So we need to include these practices into everyday life in business. And that's when we then have success in that. Now, on the left-hand side, you'll see there's the invisible and unseen, and on the right-hand side, the visible seen. Now, amazing things happen with people when, in a business context, you take them out into nature to do a strategic session. Because nature works together with us, not separate from us, and we use it as part of the process. Because I can't do strategy when I sit between 4 walls. It's impossible. How can I see? I don't have any vision because I'm in the same space that I have regularly every day. But it's in nature that we can also see ourselves as those blossoms that we can bloom, developing ourselves, but it's through a physical direct experience. And at the same time, on the conceptual plane, we really stimulate the mind. We challenge our mindsets. We increase our frames of reference, how we look at the world, our perspectives. And there are so many ways to do that. I'm sure in the course there's loads of practices that you looked into. I'm just naming a few here that we've been using with quite success. But it's the left-hand side that's really important. It's the awareness. It's perception with awareness, that I can not only see that my actions have an impact on other things and each other and the planet, but I can feel it, I can sense it. And that's where our extrasensory awareness and our unseen senses play a huge role. This is the space where people bridge realities. This is the space where people make tremendous shifts very quickly. We can start on the right-hand side by taking them into nature, for example, and giving them somatic tactical experiences. But it's actually, we're playing kairos. So this is a timeless space, between spaces, where people really have the ability to shift. And in that same process, then the mindset shift as well. But they can go concurrently. That's why I said earlier that sacred geometry is also an amazing way to use that as a way for people to bridge these different areas. Now, we usually do take an indirect approach. So we don't go and tell a business, oh, we're going to work on your people's spirituality, that they can have spiritual wellness, or that they are ecologically aware, or that we take even care of their mental health, although it's a buzzword now. We always use familiar containers like leadership, strategy, organizational change, and the likes. Wellness, workplace wellness, a beautiful container, especially to play with all these three together. So why do we do that? Otherwise, we'll get resistance, because what's not familiar, people don't like to do. So we take a very gentle approach and a very playful approach in that way to weave all these other practices and rituals into their current processes. But it's not intrusive. It's very seamless. It also doesn't take a huge intervention, like long consulting interventions at all. It's not needed. You do it very gently and you weave through an awareness thread. And that thread goes horizontal. And there are many ways that we do that. We, for example, use salons where we get the whole organization or the whole team together, and then we do an embodied sense-making salon with them. Now, during that embodied sense-making salon, the sense-making part is not a mental process. We start with our senses. Then we go into the making part. What can we do with that? We create context that's meaningful and purposeful. And then we go into what actions and interactions we can take. And then we can track that as well. And then that's the embodiment of that as well, the personification of it. Now we have different interventions, so to speak. We call it streams. For example, Spark. We weave into the business through their wellness thread, so to speak, for people to really connect with this spiritual wellness, their source of inspiration. All the things that you've studied, we connect them in a very practical way to that. So it's practical spirituality. We link that to the organization's mission, vision, and goals. And we do the same process on that level too with the leaders and the executives. Then we've got a very, very exciting one, which we call Flow, is where we organize for flourishing and prosperity. And we change the whole financial system, because here it's like a garden. Instead of them looking at how well they do for a balance sheet and the likes, and income and expenses, where even a human is an expense, which is ridiculous, we begin to show them a more living ecosystem approach of they planting seeds every day. And we can't just harvest seeds all the time in nature. There's a time to plant, there's a time to prepare the soil, time to plant, time to nourish it through rain and the sun, taking out the weeds, all the unhealthy things, and then harvest it. And then the soil must rest again. But we don't live like that. And here we learned a lot from the ancient Egyptians living next to the Nile. And it works perfectly. But it's a mindset change. So obviously we do a lot of mindset work with them as well. And again, it's not direct. We first just play with the mind so that they can expand their perception. And then we give them that multi-sensory immersive experience that they can feel it, that they can begin to embody it and to personify it. And then what we call RAIN is the financial system that then emerges from that. But we do it step by step in little bits and little pieces, from the inside out, not imposed from the outside in, because that's how change is being used, especially in the business world, in the past 3 decades. And that is not making a lot of difference, because it must come from within. Like with sustainability, it must come from within. If I don't feel part of nature, that I am nature, and realize that through immersive experience, by being in nature and deeply learning to connect with nature, not as a different thing, but I am it as an ecosystem that's generative. We will not have the impact that we need. Our own personal and spiritual development will not happen. But we need to step out beyond the labels, the roles, the functions, and stereotyping for that to happen. But that happens quite easily when we go into this space where we work with these three parts together. And they happen symbiotically, simultaneously together. And then we create that ripple in a pond, that it goes outward. We've had CEOs telling us that this work is not, it's not about development. It's about awareness. We didn't know initially what we were busy doing. They were telling us, because they kept on coming back for workshops and the likes, to sit in a meeting, in a mini breakfast workshop for 2 hours. For the CEO to do that is quite something of a big company. And they would come back and we would ask them, why are you doing this? And they said, but you are taking us out there, number one, and you're doing things with us that nobody else is doing. That's why we believe that business can be, especially when we give people the opportunity to discover their true self while they are they're stimulating their talents and beginning to blossom from the inside out, from a personal perspective. When they begin to realize, when they work outside, suddenly, they're taking their laptops out every day to sit under the sun and work for 2 hours. They tell their bosses, we will work outside today, because suddenly they're open to spatial intelligence, which is vast. Their minds are open up like a parachute. They are so much more creative. It's wonderful. And you can see they come alive. You can see the eyes suddenly glitter. It's magic. It's super magic. So all I'm saying to you, it's possible. And I've been talking quite a lot. Oh, thank you for the music. I love Steve Morgan's music. Stive. Yeah. So I know we've gone a little bit over the time, but I would ask for 5 minutes. Is that okay? Great. So your number that you've chosen, I just want to go back to them. Lee, you said number 1. Romy said number 2. Ian number 3. Prem number 4. And Sinisha number 3 as well. And Hailey, you had number 4 as well. So we've got 2 4s. Am I correct? We've got my maths is now confused here. I've spoken too much. You see, I wanted to play with you. We've got 1 number 1, 1 number 2, 2 number 3s, 2 number 4s. I'll be number 5. Now I must just quickly remember what was number 5. So Lee, what was number 1?
Spirit.
So you're spiritus. You're spiritus. And number 2, Romy? You can unmute yourself all now.
Ecology.
Pardon? Ecology. And Ian, number 3 was?
No, mental health.
Mental health. Sinisha, you're also mental health then? And Hailey, you and Prem are?
Business.
What is it? Business, and I'll be the car. Oh yes, Lamborghini. Okay. I like fast cars. But I use a lot of fuel. So if you think in terms of this topic of business being a vehicle for these 3 aspects, these 3 important elements, Lee, you have to now tell us, just in a few sentences, how can spirituality be at the center of it, of that ripple in the pond?
Spirituality is that part that connects us to ourselves, to others, to the wider world. Spirituality is that part that is involved with meaning and purpose, which is central to being part of a ecosystem, to being part of this world, and therefore the essence of business, our meaning and purpose. What are we doing?
That's in the center.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Perfect. I couldn't have said it any better. So see that then as the center of that ripple, of that water drop. It's in the center of it, although it's everything. But it's what it makes it come alive, a breathing, living thing. Espiritos, it's our breath, our living life force. So it starts there. So Romy, with you, how can we now take it to ripple out with ecology? That incredible power, that life force. How can it in this context ripple out then further? So it expands our mental health, our mental capacity at the same time as well.
I would say that ecology in nature it's the environment in which we work. It's the nourishment that feeds us, and it's a part of the fuel. We're a part of it. So there's a symbiotic, integrated relationship between our environment and ourselves. And so what we give out is also what we breathe in. So that's how I would see that ecology in nature and being embedded within. And it's almost an out-breath. So every breath is an out-breath in our environment.
That's beautiful. Thank you again. It's amazing how you encapsulate it. Thank you. Now, the two gentlemen here, the goddess, the Ishtar goddess and Ian, you both have an opportunity to share something with us about now we want to make it ripple out. Because if I was looking through a triangle like this, and I have it here, I can see more, but if I put it out there, it becomes smaller, right? So I wanted to make it bigger. So we are taking that as the next level of that ripple going outwards, that we can see and experience more, that we can also make these connections between things. So either of you can start.
Ian, would you like to start or should I?
Ishtar, you are my Ishtar now. Goddess Ishtar, you can start.
So I would say maybe I usually kind of think of mental health in terms of psychological flexibility as a kind of maybe the concept that kind of explains well the potential that's behind it, and then I would say that also is then linked with the concept of creativity, because like I think like flexibility and creativity they go really hand in hand. And so I would then say that once we have like more options in front of us, when we think more flexibly and creatively, then again that can help to expand any business, anything that we do.
Perfect. Ian.
I think mental health will be achieved through balance, and when it's out of kilter, you have a poor mental health, which you could equate with business. But also mental health would be when the psychological needs are being met. And if a business isn't set up to meet the required needs, it will be an unhealthy business.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Now our ladies, Prem and Hannelie, you are business. You're speaking for business.
Oh. Hannelie, do you want to go first?
Was there anything more you were going to say to that, Hannelie?
No, you go ahead, Hannelie. Perfect.
No, you go first, Prem.
Okay. Throw the baton. No, I think as a business, to be aware of the importance of being connected in a spiritual manner is in itself a hugely innovative step. And I think, given your definition of the current generation moving through the cycles which are taking us to that, in order to retain them as viable, I hate to say this, it sounds so geeky, but you know, as viable working models, they are going to have to, businesses are going to have to learn to evolve to incorporate the wider picture. It's synchronous that some of my earlier research was evolving or revolving around the need for more pro-social, more pro-ecological awareness by companies to, I want to say, dangle the carrot in front of them to kind of get them to come in by realizing that we are humans having a spiritual, or spirits having a human experience, and that they will ultimately benefit from allowing that to happen. And instead of being driven, the bottom line will improve incrementally just by allowing people, or allowing that development of the spiritual aspect, is what I understand. So yes, that's what I'd be dangling a carrot in front of businesses in that way.
Oh, that's beautiful. Totally resonate with that. Hannelie?
Yes, everything Prem said. And I think what's important for business is to incorporate this holistically, spirituality, ecology and mental health, but for it to be completely authentic and genuine. You know, you see examples, like I see a lot of pride stickers on certain business banners now, and I always question, are you actually fully on board, or is this just a way for you to, is this another little niche for you to make more money? And I think there could be a danger of that with spirituality, ecology and mental health. So yeah, kind of that slide you had where you had the numbers 1 to 6, so going from self-focused to others focused, all the way up to sorry, I can't remember the last one. Cosmic, yeah, thank you. Cosmic focused. You know, if we can get to that and be genuine, then that will be wonderful.
Oh yes, my body is resonating with all what you said. Thank you. Now, for me as the vehicle, we are the vehicle. Humans are the vehicle. It's not something else that must take us there. And in my own experience as well, it's when human beings have the experience that that you just said about, it's not something out there, or they do it just for the show, or to be famous, to make more money. That's why our spark and flow interventions are so powerful, because they shift their whole minds about why they're doing this. But it's not just a mental thing. It's because they suddenly experience that they are able to look at the bigger picture. But they are that bigger picture. So it becomes very personal. It's not something that somebody teach them, tell them about, because they go for a personal experience to get to that stage. So it's really authentic. Then they start shifting things automatically around. And it doesn't need to be, like I said, huge, expensive consulting interventions and the likes. It can happen very seamlessly. And I just want to leave you with one example of a company in Turkey that I used to work with. In 2012, this already happened. They had 10,000 employees. They were the biggest logistical company at that time in Turkey. And they had employees all over the country because of the nature of the business in logistics. But their CEO she went for her own spiritual journey, her own spiritual development journey, when she was still very young. And she did inherit the business. That was inherited family business, as how it started off hundreds of years ago, more than 100 years ago from now. But what she then did is she created a horizontal thread across the company. So you would have all these divisions like finance, production, logistics, HR, leadership, all these different silos. She had a horizontal thread. And what she did is they built a training center just for this purpose. So obviously they had the resources to do that, to keep that in mind. Not everybody has that. But they built the resource center, training center. Every employee had to do 3 courses a year. They could choose whatever it was, but it had to be related to spiritual and personal development. And they got people in, like facilitators in from all different sorts, to come and facilitate these courses. But every employee had to do 3 a year to work on their own personal development, so to speak, their own experience in life. And if you walked into that organization, it was just something out of this world. Everybody was alive. Everybody was happy. There was no burnout. There was no mental health issues, stress-related diseases. People were so closely knit together, and they didn't do things just to make money. If we look at what they did in other parts of the world there, it was incredible, but it came from the heart. You can easily tell when something comes from the heart, or when it's just there to impress other people or for whatever other reason. It's really visible. It's visible in their branding. It's visible in their marketing. You can see it and you can feel it. It's sensible. It's a sensory experience that something is off here. This is just greenwashing or whatever initiative they've put in that they can look great, but it's possible. So as the vehicle, it is us, wherever we are, who is the vehicle for this to happen. Mm-hmm. It's when me and you went into the shops to buy our daily groceries or whatever. It's how we engage with the cashier. It's how we engage with the fuel assistant, petrol assistants. I don't know what you call them in the UK, at the filling station. It's when you go for a walk on the beach or in the mountains and you come across somebody, it's how we engage with them. We personified. We are the vehicles. It's not something outside of ourselves. So wherever we find ourselves, it starts with us. And then it begins to ripple out because people can feel there's something going on here. They feel alive when they come into contact with people that do those things. And then they are becoming curious. Now, I've seen CEOs told me that if their boards knew what I was doing with them in those workshops, they would fire them. But they don't care because they can take it back. So practical, make things practical wherever we are for people, that they can use it in whatever way, even if it's just in the way we communicate with the cashier in the shop. It's possible. So I've got a lot of hope for humanity. For the younger generations, I can't remember if you said this, but with the younger generations, it's happening. They want to know from company. I've got a friend in the UK who's got a recruitment company in London, and she says the younger generations wants to know from the companies why they should work for them, not the other way around. They want to know, why should I work for you? What are you doing? They are the ones who want to know, how are you impacting the earth? Other people, how are you treating your people? So they're a lot more demanding in that sense than we were maybe when we applied for a role years ago. So it's happening. So I've got hope for us. I think this is happening, and business, and people begin to see that business is a living ecosystem, especially with entrepreneurs. They're already doing it. They co-create and collaborate in an ecosystem environment already. It's just formal big business and institutions that must still, get on board. And a lot are very fast. So I want to say thank you very much for staying so long. And it's in the evening, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you again and Lee's got my details.
Thank you.
It was really great to play with you. I wish we had more time. Like I said, I speak too much to these things because I'm so excited about it. But thank you so much for your patience as well and for staying so long.
Can I ask everybody to unmute, and let's give Hannelie a warm round of applause, please. Thank you ever so much, Hannelie. It is a real pleasure. I hope for the students that has opened our awareness, that evolved our perceptions and inspired us from the heart, because I know that the students will be going away and starting to feel or sense into what they might be doing for their Serving Gaia module at the end of the second year. And I think this was just such a wonderful opportunity to see what potential there is out there in the world and in places that we perhaps don't always come to and think of. And just from that perspective, then, you know, I think just to cement and to support what you've said, there are, you know, this is not just the possibility gap in this space. There are other really good green shoots. We have at the MIT over in the States, Otto Scharmer and the Presencing Institute that Hannelie brought us to, ideas around being present. It's getting a bit old in the tooth now, but there's got Frederick Laloux's book, Reinventing Organizations, that gives some real good examples of more horizontal structures rather than these hierarchical vertical structures. Ginny Whitelaw's work on Zen leadership, bringing these ideas of spirituality and resonance into the way decisions are made in companies, and Joseph Jaworski and his ideas around synchronicity and the inner path of leadership. I'm sharing those to say that this is a newer space, but there are some good examples of people making headway into this space alongside Hannelie and others. So thank you ever so much. I hope that stirred. If there are any questions, happy for people to share or to share through email. Your choice, folks. I know we've run over quite a bit, but that's okay. We're used to me running over.
Guys, I have to go. So I just want to say thank you one more time. It was a really nice, inspirational evening. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and your experience with us. I have to go now.
Thank you. Thank you for staying this long. Cheers, mate.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
I'm afraid I've got to go as well. But again, thank you, Hannelie. If I can reiterate, Sanisha the goddess, goddess's son. Thank you so much. I'm very, very interested in what you've been saying, and it's something as I said, I came across in some of my earlier research. So I feel quite inspired to carry on looking at that and seeing what can happen. So yeah, thank you. Wonderful.
Thank
you, Angie.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
Oh, Ian's gone.
See you, Ian.
Oh, I really loved that. I'm sorry I came in late. I was running around picking children up everywhere, and so I missed your introduction, but I didn't realize. So the possibility gap, immediately as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this sounds good. So yeah, I love that name. Is that the name of your business?
Yes. I'll put my email. My website is. I will just quickly put my email and my website.
Yeah,
He also has it. And if you want to receive our newsletter, we are on Substack, and also we have a monthly newsletter, which tells a little bit more about all the things we are involved in as well.
Lovely, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I know it's evening.
It was very interesting. It was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you all.
Lovely to see you, Hayley. And I hope you managed to pick up all those children lying around somewhere.
I didn't drop one of them. Yeah. Yeah. Do you know what? the hilarious thing is my eldest is 20. I'm still running her around.
Yeah.
To sort this out.
Oh,
Anyway.
bless. Oh,
Okay,
Thank
I'm gonna go.
yeah.
Lots of love,
Hope we'll
everyone.
see.
Take care.
Perhaps see
Thank
next week.
you.
I think we've got something.
Yes.
Yeah, something on the
Yep.
cards for next week. So, I'll Romy. I've saying to Romy, she'll have to be the voice for this because I'm shut out of everything other than Messenger because I still don't have a mobile phone.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I
Oh,
know. It's been a real pain. So yeah, if there's gonna, I don't know if it's gonna be Tuesday or Wednesday, but let Romy know through either the WhatsApp or if you want to get me, it'll be through Facebook Messenger.
Okay, lovely. All right then.
You take care.
Guys,
See
you
ya,
too.
Hannelie.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Trying to leave. I haven't used Zoom in ages. There we go.
Bye. Oh,
One of the things that that whilst I was listening and watching the slideshow, I think one of the things that really caught my attention was the 6 different domains, sort of the self and the other and the I am, the you are, we are. And it just, I was looking at it in reflection to politics and how politics is so centered on the I am, especially at the moment with especially our politics in Britain. So everything is focused on the how can I gain from this? And that's really reflective in society because if you have a ruling body that is very much how can I take, then it's the society mirrors that. And society, how can I take? Because then if one is taking, there has to be an opposite of that. Otherwise, there's going to be an imbalance. So yeah, so I was like looking and thinking, how can that be addressed? Because I know, you know, when we're looking at businesses, the businesses that you're maybe dealing with and the CEOs and stuff, they're maybe on the higher end of the scale of businesses, but the smaller businesses that are maybe just making ends meet, they may not be in a position to be having or knowing about these concepts. So I see that massive gap between the two, you know. So when I worked with vulnerable families, and I saw that huge gap constantly, where policies were created with middle class problems in mind, rather than.
Yeah. We've had so one of my other passions is many years ago we designed a social care economic learning platform in 2011. And the purpose of that was what we call the entrepreneurs and the smaller businesses. They are our bees, and companies are the trees, because bigger companies, because they are rooted, they are strong. The winds can come, they won't knock over so quickly, or some of them are now anyway, because of just what's happening in the world. But they adopt a bee, literally, they adopt a bee. And they care for them on a psychological level, spiritual level, physical level, all levels. And so they take responsibility for them. But again, it's a thing from the heart. It's not something that they have to do. So it's really people who are willing to do that, because they have a service leadership mindset. And we call it the Ubuntu mindset in Africa as well. So it's I am because of you. So they're really living that. And in that process, then those people get access to things like this as well. But you will be surprised. I played a very long time in entrepreneurial ecosystems the last few years as well. Because they come together not as themselves, they come together with others in a session. It's affordable. They get the same tools, because it's not like I said, big lengthy initiatives that happens in organization. It's things that they can apply directly, immediately.
Right.
So they come together just in a very different way. They come together as an ecosystem, as an entrepreneurial ecosystem. Now, some of them has 40,000 members. Now, even if just 100 of them comes together, they can still afford it. It's not then out of their league. And again, also the way we do these things are not, you would never do the same for an entrepreneurial group at the same cost as you would do for a big company, because a big company has more people that you have to work with. Obviously, that impact the fee side of it. But the beauty of these type of initiatives is they can take it forward themselves. Like in Turkey, you would do one workshop and their own HR people train to do that, and they take it into the company, for example.
Yeah.
It's like train the trainer, but it's just a more real physical experience than just a mental process. But then they can take it further. We've had that as well. So it doesn't need to be people staying there, other people like consultancy to stay there forever. It's literally just to open the door that they can see and begin to think differently about these things. And then giving them the tools and toolkits. Like we've got a sense-making toolkit, we've got a creative thinking toolkit that they can get, and then they can roll it out themselves. But you empower them to take ownership, you see. Otherwise, they also won't take ownership. And we've done it with politicians as well, by the way, through the years. So it is possible.
Yeah.
But I just want to mention to you quickly, I don't know if you're aware of Dr. Carl Johan Kalleman. If Lee gives me your email, I'll send you some of his details. He took the main calendar and he created the waves of consciousness as it evolved through time. According to that calendar, it's perfect what happened in the world. It's incredible. And where we are now is what they call the 9th wave. And what's happening in politics is even predicted in that calendar. But we don't have, it has been going down. So we'll see a lot more authoritarian leadership, self-absorbed leadership in the next few years, till about 2031, around there. Then it will start shooting up again to more authentic service type leadership. But you can see it through that pattern. It's amazing. So when you look at what's happening in the world now, not to get disheartened, to focus on that awareness that you want to bring into the world, because the more of us doing that, the shift will come quicker. And with technology, we have the tools now to connect in this way, even that we didn't have 20, 30 years ago, that makes that possible. So not to give up, even with that, what's happening in politics now, don't get distracted by it. It's a distraction.
And that's one of the things that I've experienced is when you become absorbed within it, it's almost like it pulls you in.
It pulls you in, yes,
so
yeah.
Sticky. It's so sticky. And once you're in it, even though you're aware, you're trying to get out of it,